In a historic day on Capitol Hill, Blasey Ford stepped out of the darkness to give emotional testimony while Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh stood his ground.
We have reaction from Me Too survivors, Kavanaugh supporters, USC professors, and students. See It Live starts now.
A tearful and angry Brett Kavanaugh defended his reputation after his accuser testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee. And late today, President Trump praised his Supreme Court nominee. Good evening, I'm JP DeBoo.
And I'm Charlotte Scott. The nation is buzzing tonight after passionate testimony from both Judge Kavanaugh and Professor Blasey Ford.
I am here today not because I want to be. I am terrified. I am here because I believe it is my civic duty.
This confirmation process has become a national disgrace.
I was too afraid and ashamed to tell anyone these details.
I have never done this to her or to anyone. That's not who I am. It is not who I was.
I convinced myself that because Brett did not rape me, I should just move on and just pretend that it didn't happen.
The other night, Ashley and my daughter Liza said their prayers. And little Liza, all of 10 years old, said to Ashley, we should pray for the woman. It's a lot of wisdom from a 10-year-old.
Blasey Ford's testimony was met with sympathy and support from several senators on the Judiciary Committee.
So what you are telling us is this could not be a case of mistaken identity?
Absolutely not.
You've never forgotten that laughter. You've never forgotten them laughing at you.
They were laughing with each other.
I have found your testimony powerful and credible, and I believe you.
The committee seemed to be split along party lines when senators from both sides of the aisle questioned Judge Kavanaugh.
This is not a job interview.
Yeah.
This is hell. This is going to destroy the ability of good people to come forward because of this crap.
You're saying there's never been a case where you drank so much that you didn't remember what happened the night before or part of what happened.
You're asking about, blackout. I don't know, have you?
This man is not a monster, nor is he what has been represented here.
Blasey Ford attended USC for a 5-year PhD program. She graduated from the Rossier School of Education in 1996 with a PhD in counseling psychology. In order to graduate, Ford completed a 120-page dissertation titled Measuring Young Children's Coping Responses to Interpersonal Conflict. Her main question was, how do children cope with social and interpersonal conflict? In her dissertation, she assessed the social cognitive coping strategies of preschool children. She found that children's coping strategies were independent of their normal behavior, which made it difficult to understand and measure how young children process stressful situations. Ford has many degrees of higher education. In 1988, she graduated from UNC Chapel Hill with a degree in experimental psychology. In 1991, she earned a master's in clinical psychology from Pepperdine. She received her PhD in counseling psychology from USC in 1996, and finally, she completed a Master of Science in Epidemiology at Stanford University in 2009. Students gathered at Wallace Annenberg Hall to watch the Kavanaugh hearing today.
We wanted to hear what they thought of the testimony.
Dozens of students watched the hearing throughout the day, and they had mixed reactions to the proceedings.
I think it is interesting, and then it's nice that these charges are being taken seriously.
The overarching narrative of how boys will be boys and, men have an inclination to do these things, the toxic argument there hasn't really changed after nearly 30 years.
It's been really weird seeing how much emotion Kavanaugh's had in all of this, how defiant, how angry he's been. How unwilling he's been to work with an independent investigation.
About 100 people gathered at Dianne Feinstein's LA office today to protest Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh.
The demonstration was sponsored by Women's March LA and included survivors of sexual assault.
Hey, hey, ho, ho! Brett Kavanaugh has got to go!
messages of support for sexual assault survivors, protesters urged the Senate committee to reject Kavanaugh. Many people say they came to show support for Kavanaugh's accuser and to share their own stories.
I was the victim of an attempted sexual assault, and I could have died in that room. And yet it never occurred to law enforcement or myself to bother let the guy go.
I'm so enraged, and I'm so fearful for my daughters and my daughter's daughters of what could come if things don't change.
I have deep respect for Dr. Ford in the courage, because, you know, having to go through the usual scrutiny is terrifying in itself.
The fact that he is someone who's being accused of sexual assault and then will be put onto the Supreme Court and make decisions about women's bodies is just, we can't. And we need you guys so much. USC, all the students need to get out and vote. I mean, this is dire times. This election could be the election of our lifetime.
While protesters are marching in the streets, others have taken to social media to voice their opinions. Our very own correspondent Susie Placencia is here to break down what's trending on Twitter. So Susie, what's the latest?
Today's hearing prompted more than 6 million tweets, both against and in support of Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation. Supporters used the hashtag ISTANDWITHBRETT. Tommy Lauren tweeted, "Brett Kavanaugh is not backing down. He's not playing dead. He's coming out swinging and knocking these quacks out of the park. Get him, Brett." Yeshua Parvida tweeted, "Brett Kavanaugh's situation isn't about politics. It's about right and wrong. This is about discernment. Pray for him." Twitter user Mindy Moore tweeted, "Me too. I was sexually assaulted as a teenager. I still cannot talk about it without getting visibly shaken and upset. She seems coached and fake." We talked to Mindy Moore, who lives in St. Louis.
When anybody that's been sexually assaulted or has been through a sexual assault, you don't forget things. You don't forget where it happened. You don't forget who did it. You don't forget the smell of the room. You don't forget stuff like that. She's very emotionalist. She didn't get upset. She was trying to cry. She couldn't make herself cry. It seemed like that she was coached.
We also had a chance to catch up with a USC student to get her thoughts on Brett Kavanaugh and why she supports his nomination.
Undergrad, Yale Law School, top of his class in high school. This kid has had it all since he was a young man, and I think Kavanaugh's strength is his articulateness, his deliberateness, and if you read any of his opinions that he has written as a judge, then you will know that everything he does is thought out and very, very concurrent with the Republican Party and the current standings it has.
Those against Kavanaugh's confirmation also took to Twitter to share their thoughts using hashtag Kavanaugh. Chessie Prout tweeted, "Where's the sympathy for the victim? Where's the concern over the death threats she's received? Where's the emphasis on how her reputation and career is impacted? Stop Kavanaugh now." Matt Janovic tweeted, "Yes, Brett Kavanaugh deserves every excruciating second of his testimony. Kavanaugh." David Paul Jones tweeted, "It all makes sense after today's performance by Brett Kavanaugh. It is clear why Donald Trump nominated him. The anger and disgust they show toward women is illuminating. They are both unfit for office." We spoke to Chessie Prout. She's had her experience as a sexual assault survivor made today's testimony very painful.
Having to testify in front of a room full of strangers, having to relive this trauma over and over again is soul-crushing. And it takes years and years to recover from it. I'm still physically shaking today and feel like kind of the same way I did after I testified, which was I felt physically sick.
USC professor Matt Levacki says that sites like Twitter provide people around the world an opportunity to engage with and contribute to conversations surrounding controversial topics.
It allows the general public at large to participate in the conversation. That is a radical change from 15, 20 years ago, whereas you'd call into a radio talk show, you'd write a letter to the editor, you'd talk to your office mates on it, or coworkers. Now, everybody has an opportunity to post a tweet and say what they want.
While today's historic hearing sparked global commentary on social media, it remains unclear whether it will affect the Senate's confirmation decision.
At the beginning of the hearings, Kavanaugh accused Democrats of treating him unfairly. This calls into question whether the potential Supreme Court justice would be impartial in his position. We spoke with a Supreme Court expert to hear her predictions.
I think the 45-minute statement that he gave today really did call into question his ability to remain fair and impartial. The fact that he went in that direction all the way to a conspiracy really does give people pause regarding whether or not he'll be able to rely on just the facts of a case when he's actually trying to decide what to do at the Supreme Court level.
Today's Senate hearing brings back memories for many Americans of a somewhat similar situation in 1991. Law professor Anita Hill accused Supreme Court nominee Clarence Thomas of sexual harassment. 27 years ago, President George H.W. Bush nominated Clarence Thomas to the Supreme Court. During the nomination process, Anita Hill accused him of sexually harassing her 10 years earlier. She testified before an all-male Senate Judiciary Committee. It was a defining moment in American history, often viewed as a low point for the U.S. Senate. Despite the allegations, nominee Clarence Thomas was confirmed to the Supreme Court in a 48-52 vote.
And after a busy day on Capitol Hill, here's what's next for Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. Senate Republicans are meeting tonight to discuss today's hearing, and the Senate Judiciary Committee is scheduled to vote on Kavanaugh's confirmation tomorrow. A Supreme Court nominee requires a full Senate floor vote, and that would most likely take place next week. The Supreme Court term will begin on Monday, regardless of whether there are 9 or 8 justices. Well, Charlotte, no matter what the outcome is tomorrow, this is definitely a historic moment for our country.
A very historic moment for America. Thanks for watching See It Live. From everyone at Annenberg Media, I'm Charlotte Scott.
And I'm JP DeBoo. You can watch us on the web at uscannenbergmedia.com. Good night.